Hi, I'm Katie Hendricks, and I'm here to explore with you the incredible power of living in integrity. Learning how to keep your agreements, communicate effectively, be in touch with your feelings, and take healthy responsibility. And particularly what I want to explore with you today is the area of agreements. And we almost always look at agreements first because agreements really let you know the health of your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others. We take a look at agreements because agreements are really like a blueprint. They're the architecture of how you're going to arrange your life. When you make an agreement, and an agreement is between you and one or more people, which is distinct from a commitment, which is really between you and the universe. You're committing, stepping in on a path of where you want to go, but an agreement almost always involves another person. People talk about, well, what if I break my agreements with myself? And that's a separate issue that we'll get into. But I wanted to explore with you the tremendous power of really keeping an eye on your agreements. And we have 5 different cards that we're going to be exploring. And the one that I want to explore with you today in Impeccable Agreements, which has this wonderful picture on it, which you'll see, is about I recognize, appreciate, and celebrate my whole body aliveness when I keep my agreements. That's the statement. I feel more alive when I keep my agreements. When I make my agreements and I keep the agreements that I make, the big payoff is that I feel more alive. And the way we put this in a question is, how can I experience the increased aliveness that comes from keeping my agreements? So one of the big issues for people with agreements is they don't know that they've actually made an agreement. So people say, I'll meet you for lunch at 1, and don't realize that that's actually a blueprint. You've created something out in space, and then when you step into that agreement, you get to kind of connect your circuits again. It's as if when you say, I'm going to do something, you're putting an electrical wire out there with all of that energy. And when you keep the agreement, that energy gets hooked up into your own system, and you get to enjoy increased aliveness. One of the reasons that people don't keep their agreements is because they are afraid of the consequences of acknowledging, oh, I said I would do something and I didn't do it. So what often substitutes for keeping an agreement is not keeping an agreement plus what we think of as a really good excuse. Like, my cat threw up just as I was going out the door, or gosh, I just forgot, or I didn't realize that we'd actually had an agreement. One of the things that we suggest to people is to, especially when you're first getting into the practice of I do what I say I'm going to do and I don't do what I say I'm not going to do, is that you write it down. Because as we're going through a day, you might be walking past somebody, you're walking past your mate, and they say, would you pick up the cream on the way home from the store? And you say, oh yeah, but you don't write it down. So using our very big brains for things like keeping track of grocery lists is not a very good use of your brain. But writing it down is really a great way to go, oh yes, I said I was going to do that. And when you are reliable about, I do what I say I'm going to do and I don't do what I say I'm not going to do, that puts you into a pretty exclusive club. When we first started talking about this and studying this years ago, we looked at various studies, and it was pretty clear that only about 3% of people actually do what they say they're going to do. So it's like no wonder that things don't work. And I've had many experiences, as I'm sure you have, where I think I have an agreement with somebody. For example, they're going to come over and fix something in my house, and then they just simply don't show up. And then maybe a couple of days later they'll say, oh, I didn't check my phone. So that kind of missed opportunity, the basic thing that happens is that rather than being in the flow of life and having that engine of life support you because you're aligned, you're all full of wobbles and you can't really track where am I going and how am I using my aliveness. So the big thing about agreements is that they allow you to align yourself, just like aligning the wheels on your car, that you're going in the direction that you intend to go. So one thing I want to invite you to do with this card is, how do I know I've made an agreement? And we're going to be looking at, do I really want to make this agreement? Am I choosing this agreement? But the very fundamental thing to realize is that when I keep an agreement, it increases my aliveness and it makes me in charge of my own decisions rather than having somebody have to force me to do something or get mad at me, because we've found that people get their leftover anger at authority figures who were telling them what they couldn't do early in life with keeping agreements. So getting mad at somebody for reminding you that you didn't do what you said you were going to do can let you know that there's still some issues in there that might have come from earlier in your life. And that's all part of what you can clear up while you're playing with the integrity deck. So when you're looking at the image, let yourself look at, wow, what would it be like for me if I were moving smoothly along the pathway of my life by making and keeping agreements? More later. Thanks a lot.